Welcome back to another episode of Ask E Everything. Thanks for tuning in today, guys. Hope you are out there enjoying a safe Memorial Day weekend. On that note, I do want to start, of course, by wishing everyone a happy Memorial Day and specifically saying thank you, a wholeheartedly thank you to all of those that have sacrificed their time, their lives, and really their hearts and souls to defend this country over the years, and ultimately to provide us with the freedoms that we have, those freedoms to be alive in general and to live our lives in this free way, and to be able to think freely for ourselves, and also to be able to act on those thoughts, and to just be able to act freely, and really at the end of the day, just to be safe and to be really truly just given this opportunity to experience this amazing universe. So thank you to all of those folks that have done that over the years for us. As a little memorial for me today, I'm got my grandfather's hat on. This is Pap's hat. Served in the Army, and behind me here over my right shoulder, I've got my other grandfather's naval hat. It says Tin Can Sailors, and he was in the Navy. So I want to honor both of them today before we get started. That kind of beauty and freedom that I spoke about earlier is a great lead-in to the question for today, which is, are you where you're supposed to be in life? And that question as a broader scope is just kind of, are you, exactly where you're supposed to be at all times in life? And this came about in a conversation just the other day where I was in a discussion regarding kind of what I'm doing and what we are doing, and kind of where we're at and all this. And I was reminded of this very common expression that a lot of folks like to use, which is telling someone in a time of just consideration where they're kind of thinking about their life, kind of taking stock on their life. It's commonly said, hey, you're exactly where you're supposed to be right now. You're in, the place where you're supposed to be. This is just kind of right now where you're at, and, we'll see where things go. And a lot of times, again, and I've talked about this in other aspects in other videos on the channel already, but this is another one of those expressions that's used for comfort. It's used for kind of peace of mind. It's used to usually give someone some sense of advice, but in the sense of just kind of grounding them and kind of centering and providing some hope that, it could be in a situation where there's been something kind of negative that's happened, and it's been like, an explanation for that in the sense of, this is just, you're where you're supposed to be, better times on the horizon. Or it could be a sense of celebration in the sense of, kind of confirming an accomplishment or just confirming a physical place or something like that, where you'd hear someone say, you are exactly where you're supposed to be in the universe right now. Everything's going great. This is just like, this is your time, and all of that. And so really, either way you use it, just in general, the question, becomes interesting because it can be, taken two ways, right? There could be the more basic version of it, which is, involving location. Are you where you're supposed to be in the world or in the universe right now? As far as, are you living in the city or the town that you're supposed to be living in, and in the dwelling that you're living in? But on a more complex note, or more expansive note, it could also just be kind of in this cosmic or in this universal sense, are you where you're supposed to be at all times? A lot of folks will kind of seem to believe one or the other, either that you are kind of always where you're supposed to be, and I hear this a lot, when people are kind of talking about their outlook, and they'll say, when this is brought up, you are always where you're supposed to be at life. That's a silly, question. You're always exactly where you're supposed to be. And this is usually people that believe more in kind of a fatist perspective, where they might just believe that life is somewhat already determined and they're just kind of on their journey or walking their path. It also could come into play, I guess, from the religious perspective, often as a comment, where we could say, this is just, where God has you right now. You're where you're supposed to be at all times, and so, just live out life, and it'll be fruitful. that's definitely an interesting, route to consider. And in some ways, I do think that there are some truths in there, as far as analyzing that, where it could be the case. The other school of thought would be folks that don't believe in any of these systems that we've just mentioned, and they kind of don't think at any one time that you're necessarily supposed to be anywhere. And so the question in and of itself might just be voided, and their answer could be, well, no, I'm not in where I'm supposed to be in life, because I'm not supposed to be anywhere. I have the freedom to just kind of do whatever and be wherever, and so I don't need to ever measure myself or take stock at any point and assess where I am, because I'm just kind of free-flowing through life. Both sides are interesting. The gray area, obviously, in between there would be, some combination of both. And so I found it interesting. I think that what happens when we use this expression, when we are told, or when we tell ourselves, or even when we tell someone else, that we are where we're supposed to be, where we're meant to be, where, this is just kind of what's going on right now in life. While it is comforting and certainly provides you with some kind of peace of mind, I think it's often, again, why we use it, so that we can just kind of say, yeah, so this is it for now. Like, I just got to get through this, or just kind of handle this right now, and then, there'll be a brighter horizon, or I'll end up getting, somewhere else, just kind of naturally as I move along. But the reality is, when I think about it, from a standpoint of our minds, basically generating and being in control of our actions, and therefore all of the things that we do, I think the answer to the question for me is, in fact, yes, that you are, and that we are where we are supposed to be in life at all times. But, and there's a big but here, I would go a step further and suggest that because we have placed ourselves in that place in the universe at any given moment, we also have not only the option, but I would suggest the obligation, in a healthy way, the obligation to continue to be kind of seeking out the answer to that question as life does flow on. What I mean by all this is, we're where we're supposed to be because we've put ourselves there. And due to whatever circumstances you want to measure, and everyone will have a different set, and again, this is where critics will chime in and say, well, I didn't ultimately, choose my place in life, or choose where I live. My career chose that. I had to be, I have to live where I am because of the job that I have, or I have to live where I live because I have a family and the kids go to school, or my, husband works somewhere, my wife works somewhere, my, family lives there, and I need to be nearby them, or whatever. There will be a lot of answers that folks, I'm sure, would chime in and say that other circumstances have placed them in a certain place. Again, if you're religious, you might just believe in divinity. You might believe that it's just the divine, reason that you are where you are, that you have this purpose to be somewhere. That's perfectly fine. Any spiritual answer, of course, could be considered. But on a practical level, as far as I'm concerned, the way I see it, and I think it's the most interesting way because it provides the most option, I believe we've placed ourselves where we are. There will always be circumstances that make us, or that suggest to us, that we should make certain choices about that question, as far as, well, I probably should go here because of this job, or I should go here because I love this person and that's where they want to be, or that's where they want to raise a family, or that's where they just want to live, or I should live here because it's just the most beautiful place I've ever seen. But at the end of the day, those really are options still. And so, again, I would challenge someone to really come up with an answer for why they have to be specifically somewhere as far as a location goes. Now, as I mentioned before, this isn't all about location, but I do believe that to a degree, your location that you choose to be in the universe, or in this country, or in this state, depending on wherever you live, does have something to do with the secondary part of the question, which is, okay, I live in this town, in this city, in this country, in this, in this world, in this galaxy, in this universe. You've got your location down. Well, what are you doing there? And what is your life there? What does it consist of? Again, we've talked about this in some other videos before, but what exactly is the stock on your life in that location? And how are you living life? Are you living your fullest life? Are you very happy there or not? Are you very satisfied or not? When you look out your window every day, do you like what you see? When you walk out your front door, do you like where your feet land? When you go to seek out some time in nature or some time outside of your building that you live in, are you pleased with what that provides you with? These are interesting questions because really it all starts with kind of where you are. I always like to say to folks, I talk about this a lot with friends often, you can bring your mind anywhere, right? Your mind, luckily, even though we can let it, quote, wander, technically, but your mind's going to be with you wherever you are. The two things that you really get to choose that I think are important, because your mind traveling with you is a given, are the people that you surround yourself with, the people you spend your life with, your time with, and the place where you live and spend your life. I think it's kind of one of these things where, because our mind always travels with us and we don't really think of that as one of the factors, we end up being in certain places and with certain people, again, based on our choices, whether we like to admit that or not. It's always our choice to decide to go, to decide to stay. But we end up in those places, and then what we do is we come around to kind of feeling like we are where we're supposed to be. And the reason is because it could be pretty good where you are. You could have life pretty well, or pretty good, and you could be, even pretty happy. You could be very happy. The question is, once you reach that level and you start to tell yourself or believe that you are where you're supposed to be, have you then stopped actually seeking, any, greater amount of joy, happiness, fulfillment, satisfaction? And that's ultimately my fear, that we use this concept of kind of this, placement in the universe as a factor to help us. But in a way, I think it also, if we're not careful, can be an inhibitor to us. And so the more I thought about this as it came up in my personal conversation, I started to really challenge myself, and I quickly realized that while I do believe that, generally speaking, I am where I'm supposed to be as far as location and life and status and goal achievement and all this kind of thing, I quickly realized that I probably often fall back on that as a crutch a little too much, to the point where I don't actually let myself dream big anymore, or reach for something more, or consider another place that I've always wanted to live, for example, that I've been talking about for decades and never actually gone and lived there and gone and tried it out. And then with regard to the other part of this is kind of like the people you spend your time with. It's the same type of thing. Just because something's good doesn't mean that it couldn't be, quote, better. And I hate those words as kind of labels, but we've got to use words to describe this in some way. And so I think kind of the more clear way to think of it is, just a level of kind of enjoyment and happiness. So you got to ask yourself at any given time, where am I? Who am I, and who am I with? And from there, the possibilities become pretty endless. Look, if you love exactly where you're at, if you are spending your days with the people that you love, the greatest people you could ever imagine, and living in a building, in a town that you have always dreamed of, and you could never imagine being anywhere else, then this video might not be for you. But if you're sitting there watching this and thinking to yourself, that's interesting. Even though I've pretty much convinced myself that I'm generally where I'm supposed to be in this world and in the universe and kind of, at this time in my life, is it not a nice option, again, a freedom that we've been given, to always be thinking about, maybe there's something else. Maybe there's another place that I'd want to be that would give me a different lifestyle, or even just a different set of daily habits, or kind of just a different whatever it is, nature perspective or something like that. I don't think that this is a time, again, and I say this all the time in my videos because a lot of times it seems like I'm just sending you down this road to shake up your whole life. That's not the point of this. None of my videos are intended to do that. What they're intended to do is make you think a little bit the same way that I had to think a little bit about this when it fell into my lap. I don't think that it means necessarily you should question everything and throw everything up in the air and just decide, oh my gosh, he's right, I need to just change everything up. I got to pick everything up, move to a different city, try to figure it out, quit my job, all these things. But I do believe that it's just healthy and it's fun and it's enjoyable, honestly, to be thinking about the answer to that question. Am I really where I'm supposed to be in life right now? Again, my short answer is yes, you are, because you've placed yourself there and you place yourself wherever you're going to be. You always have and you always will. Instead of looking at that as a ball and chain, we need to look at it as really just, again, this kind of wide open opportunity to choose where you want to be, who you want to be with, and then choose how you want to live your life. Your mind is with you. It's always packed. It doesn't even take up any room in your suitcase. But you literally get to choose the other parts of that adventure. And like in the previous video when I mentioned kind of this choose your own adventure novel, same type of thing. You can go anywhere and live. You can be in any kind of phase of your life, age-wise, career-wise, relationship-wise, or what have you, and still be free to think about that option. You do not lose that under any real life circumstance, and except for a couple extreme ones, obviously, which could be somewhat inhibiting. But if you're sitting there kind of looking for a little bit of guidance, all I would say is never stop asking that question. The more you can answer yes as you go forward in life, then the closer you're getting to your level of fulfillment that you're looking to achieve. But even if you're living an A- life and you could live an A life, or you're living an A life and you could live an A+, or you're living a C- and you really want to live a B+, however you want to talk about it, it's up to you. No one's going to come and just say, hey, look, here's an opportunity to just go improve your position in life, be it a location or kind of a spiritual or adventure status. So it's up to you. That's a challenge for the day. It's not a flip the script, but just a challenge, just to ask yourself that question. Am I where I'm supposed to be? Yes, you are, because you've put yourself there. So for right now, you are. But is there somewhere else you'd like to be? Is there another place or another way that you'd like to be living your life, or just kind of an enhancement that you could provide yourself? And once you have the answer, the next thing is to actually, make it a goal and start to obtain it. I know that considering this question certainly lit my fire and got me really excited about considering some more kind of answers and possibilities to that question for myself. We'll keep you posted on that as we go along. I hope you are out there doing the same thing, and let's just live a more positive life. Happy Memorial Day. Thanks for tuning in. Please leave comments. Please subscribe. I'm looking to double my current subscribers to 4. I've got 2. I'm looking to continue to double. 2 more would really make me happy. So subscribe, notifications, like, all that good stuff. Remember, the only dumb question is the one that goes unanswered. And let's continue to be courteous to one another and be curious. We'll see you soon.